English students, this is Miss Alsamani, and I want to talk about the poetry short story essay that we're going to go over next. So essentially, you can choose any of the combination of works that we went over, but notice you have the birthmark, Because I Could Not Stop for Death, Shall I Compare Thee to a Summer's Day, or My Mistress's Eyes Are Nothing Like the Sun. And so based off which works really spoke to you when you read them, I would choose the ones that were most interesting to you. Also, notice the discussion question answers that you gave last week. I went back and replied to your answers and gave you feedback on which topics would be best. For several of you, it was pretty obvious which works really stuck with you, essentially, that you were most interested in. So I'd recommend going back and looking at those discussion replies and see my feedback so that way it can help guide you when you're choosing your topic. If you are having trouble choosing your topic, I know some of this literature is pretty dense, feel free to email me. I can walk you through how to discuss certain literature, or if you're not sure how to organize your ideas, I can help you with that as well. So just to let you know that I'm here to guide you, even though I can't actually be with you as you're writing this. So the rough draft is due July 22nd, Wednesday. It's actually my birthday, so the rough draft is due on my birthday on Wednesday. By midnight in the discussion board. We're going to do peer review on this one as well. The final draft is due Sunday, July 26th by midnight in the week 8 folder and content. So, it's worth 100 points, 20% of the final grade. Essays should be at least 800 words in length, and the formatting is nothing new. It's still 12-point Times New Roman font, double space with MLA heading and style. If you're still struggling with the MLA heading, I'd recommend looking at page 161 in the Seagull textbook for an example. You will have to have a works cited page with the literary works cited. Those are only the literary works that you write about. So say if you only write about the birthmark, you would only cite the birthmark. Notice on the second page of the topic list, I've already cited these works for you. And so all you have to do is copy and paste the citations that you need. So if you write about one piece of literature, you could write or just have the citation for that one. If you are writing about several, like say if you choose 3 works to focus on, then you would need 3 citations. So just remember to include those at the end of your essay, and all you have to do is copy and paste them. So that's really important. So you will not need any outside sources, so don't look at Sparks Notes or Schmoop or any of those online websites, because it could get flagged for plagiarism whenever it goes through our software. That's the anti-plagiarism software. So please just stick with your own ideas, your own interpretation of the works, because that's what I'm really looking for this assignment. Notice I have several topic ideas. You could choose one and apply it to one work, or apply it to 2 of the pieces of literature, or 3, however many you want to discuss, based off how you want to organize it. So if you are comparing and contrasting 2 characters, it might be that you choose to focus on the speaker of Because I Could Not Stop for Death and Georgiana and the birthmark. You can compare and contrast those 2 as far as how willing they are to die. I mean, they both have a plot spoil. Georgiana dies at the end of the birthmark, and then so does the speaker of Because I Could Not Stop for Death. So you could compare and contrast their approach to death and focus on 3 aspects that illustrate how different or how similar their approach to death is. So if you're doing the comparing and contrasting 2 characters, you're most likely focusing on 2 works of literature. Imagery, essentially imagery is focusing on the settings and the images that are within the literature and what they represent. So themes, that would be ideas that are in the literature. So like obviously Because I Could Not Stop for Death has death as the major theme. The birthmark as well, death for sure, because Georgiana does die in it, and there's a lot of discussion about the nature of death and the afterlife. My Mistress's Eyes Are Nothing Like the Sun and Shall I Compare Thee to a Summer's Day, they both have love as major themes within their writing. So like Shakespeare's essentially 2 very different sonnets about love. So those are just some hints. Love, obviously, the 2 sonnets are the most common. Really, the birthmark, you could argue whether or not Almer actually does love Georgiana. I personally would think he doesn't, because he doesn't accept her for who she is. He has to get rid of the birthmark to love her genuinely. So That's something you could debate as well. How the author's message is or is not relevant today. So that's your own interpretation, whether or not you feel like the literature still applies to a modern audience, whether it's still relevant. And so that's really something that's going to be your own interpretation as well. How the conclusion is foreshadowed. Foreshadowing is essentially major hints on what's going to happen at the end. So for those of you that might have taken my 101 or might have just read this in the past, the Cask of Amontillado has a lot of foreshadowing, and so does the birthmark, honestly. Essentially, there's hints that Georgiana will die. There's his dream, Almer dreams that the birthmark has a hold of her heart, and so there's a lot of hints that are kind of showing what's going to happen at the end. So you could focus in on those hints and what they said about the characters. The settings. So one of the major settings that you guys read about was because I could not stop for death. Essentially, the speaker is taken on a carriage ride to her grave, and they pass by this field of grain and children playing on the playground, and then the house is the swelling of the ground. A lot of you guys got this right on the discussion questions, that it is her grave. And so you could delve into the 3 settings that are discussed in the poem and what they represent and what they mean to you as a reader. Symbolism, those are like symbols represent something larger than themselves. So flowers represent love, skulls represent death. And so there are a lot of symbols in all of these, honestly. You could focus in on items and what they represent. Death in the afterlife, really those are more like the birthmark and because I could not stop for death. Those both are very death focused, essentially. But notice, shall I compare thee to a summer's day and my mistress's eyes nothing like the sun? They both focus on what it means to have eternal love. Some of you guys picked up on, especially in Shall I Compare Thee to a Summer's Day, that essentially his love for her will last as long as the poem lasts. And so if you wanted to get into how literature can create a sort of afterlife for the subjects that are being written about, that's another way to analyze those as well. But you will need to focus on at least one of these 4 pieces of literature. You can't deviate from that part of the topic. So even if none of these topic ideas speak to you and you have another idea about the birthmark or about Because I Could Not Stop for Death or about the sonnets from Shakespeare, you do need to focus on those 4 works. You can't just, like, I want to write about this book I read in 8th grade. It needs to be something that's focused on the course. 10 points off every day late, as usual. All final drafts will be graded using our grading rubric, still on the Getting Started page, and will be scanned with anti-plagiarism software, so don't plagiarize, and that won't be a problem. And then I've got some brainstorming outlining space at the bottom if you need it. But don't forget, I've got the works cited page essentially done for you. Normally I would have had you guys do this yourself, but since I can't be in the computer lab and guide you through how to cite our textbook, it's just easier this way, honestly. So just notice they are in alphabetical order. The works cited title is at the top and centered. Notice they're double spaced with the hanging indent, so just for formatting purposes. And then page 168 has a really good example in your Siegel textbook. So let me know if you have any questions whatsoever about this essay, and I'll be happy to help. Thanks. Bye.